Something dark and grimly fiendish was born in the bright sunshine of Fort Lauderdale, Florida back in 1989, when a young rock journalist met with a like-minded young musician. Marilyn Manson is both the name of a band from Florida and the name of that band's singer. For the most part, the two are the same. The name was formed by the pairing of two massive 60s icons, one representing the bright, manufactured glamour of Hollywood, the other representing its dark underbelly. The name was deliberately chosen. Manson was very aware of the power that such icons can hold. But the names are also deliberately opposed, supposedly opposites. Manson himself has talked about the paradox of joining apparently diametrically opposed images. It's about male and female, sex and death, innocence and corruption side by side. Two sides of the same coin, like two ends of a horseshoe, never meeting but forever joined. For Manson, it seemed like the perfect persona.
I've always felt that rather than to be being told and to have to fit into the standard of what's popular, we've always done what we like to do, and we've managed to now become part of the mainstream in order to overcome it and change what it's about. So it's just like the idea of if, a million people in America own a Bible and they believe it, then that makes that makes God a reality. If a million people buy a Marilyn Manson record and believe in it, then that makes Marilyn Manson a reality.
The man who was to become this persona was born Brian Warner. The year was 1969, and the place was Midwestern America. His father was a furniture salesman, and his mother was a nurse. It appeared to be an awesomely average family, yet his childhood contained elements that were at odds with this wholesome image. Manson's childhood was plagued by illness, and he was later to claim that this was a direct result of his father's exposure to the chemical Agent Orange during the Vietnam War. According to Manson, he and his father were summoned regularly by the US government to undergo rigorous physical and mental examinations. Perhaps it was these experiences that helped foster his later obsessions with medical prosthesis and surgical paraphernalia, and his deep distrust of government and the conventional society that it upheld. Another factor shaping his ultimate persona was his parents' decision to send him, in 1973, aged 5, to a private Christian school. Fortunately for death metal, attempts to instill puritanical Christian values into our young hero were in vain, and heavy-handed warnings that rock and metal belonged to the devil only had the effect of pushing him towards that music.
Did you have a happy childhood?
Some parts of it were. In the past, I've talked a lot about things that happened to me as a kid, but not all of it's been bad. In fact, I think most of it really gave me the power to be where I'm at now, because I chose not to be victimized by the things that happened to me as a kid.
What kind of things?
Everybody's heard a lot of the stories about the experiences I had with my strange grandfather, which I kind of go into on the song Kinderfeld on the new album, which he was just a strange character who, and I call him a character because he doesn't seem like a real person in some ways, but he had this large collection of really deviant pornography that he kept in the basement, and he would turn these trains on, and we would think he would be playing with his trains, but he was actually doing a lot of really sick things, and this was something I discovered when I was about 12, and it was something that I became really fascinated with, and it was a weird introduction for me into, everything. It was kind of a loss of innocence, and it was a realization that a lot of things that are thought to be pure weren't at all.
Did you get to a point where watching grandfather maybe not telling the other relatives because you wanted it to continue as opposed to ratting them out?
No, it was something actually that nobody believed and didn't want to speak about, so there was a lot of disillusionment for me, and I felt like I had done something wrong, because when I mentioned it to other family members, I looked like the bad person.
When he turned 18, Brian Warner moved to Florida and began working as a music journalist in the Tampa Bay area. By the time he met guitarist Scott Mitchell, he was already changing into Manson. he persuaded Mitchell that he should become Daisy Berkowitz, a union between Daisy Duke from the Dukes of Hazzard and son of Sam, serial killer David Berkowitz, and together they began making music. Berkowitz and Manson spent the first 12 months of their partnership writing, recording, and producing songs they would release on homemade cassettes. Their debut tape was titled Meat Beat Cleaver Beat. Their second, Sniffy's VCR, included a unique rendition of Madonna's Justify My Love. Other early self-released tapes included prototype versions of Cake and Sodomy, My Monkey, and Strange Same Dogma, all tracks that were to eventually appear on their debut album proper, Portrait of an American Family. That family was Manson's family. Initially formed as Manson and the Spooky Kids, by the time they hit the Florida live circuit in the early 90s, the family included Gidget Guyan on bass and keyboardist Madonna Wayne Gacy. They hit the Florida metal scene like a hurricane. Their early live shows included Caged Girls, skinned goats' heads, and readings from the children's book The Cat in the Hat. As well as demonstrating a profound understanding of showmanship and spectacle, the band also proved themselves to be highly organised and surprisingly adept at the more commercial aspects of the business called show. They produced their own newsletter, family trip to Maltsville, and set up their own answering machine service. Abusive messages from angry parents and ranting fundamentalists were kept for posterity and often incorporated into many of the demo tracks that the band were producing at the time. Some even eventually ended up on actual albums. Manson added yet another dimension to their music by ejecting their drum machine and engaging a real-life drummer, Sarah Lee Lucas. The result was a move away from an industrial sound and another step towards the hardcore.
What kind of drugs do you do, Marilyn?
I try and stay away from them all right now.
Really? Is that true? You're clean right now?
No. Do you believe it?
Do I?
You keep believing what he says.
That man is just a liar.
How foolish are you?
Cocaine? You like cocaine?
I don't think anyone likes it because it makes you poop your pants.
You do enormous quantities, though, in some chapters in this book, though. I mean, you really pack the stuff away.
You just used the words "poop your pants."
I know he did. But I read a quote from you in the paper or something this week where you talked about how you're not an addict.
No,
and you're
not.
pissed off at drug addicts, right?
Yeah, I just think you should be able to be a professional drug user. If you're going to use drugs, do them right.
Do it safe. Don't be an addict. Don't be addicted to it so that you become a loser.
Yeah, sure.
You're for the legalization of all drugs?
Oh, that wouldn't be any fun.
So you like to do it because it's illicit?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
I see. You've done it. Have you ever had a scary situation where you've been like really sick from doing too much? Because it sounds like sometimes you just really overdo it in the book.
Well,
any regrets on that?
There's a couple instances in my past.
When have you gotten really sick? And
I never really got sick. It wasn't that type of a drug thing.
You just have you must have an amazing constitution.
Yeah, well, being on tour, you become sort of superhuman in a lot of ways.
I mean, Marilyn looks healthier than 80% of the guests we have in here. And with the way he lives his life, it's incredible.
That's the key. You make your body a place where germs don't want to live.
The hard work and constant experimentation paid off. By 1992, they were nominated for both Best Hard Alternative Band and Band of the Year in the South Florida's Slammys Awards. They decided to truncate their name to simply Marilyn Manson, and in the summer of 1993, they racked up 5 more Slammy nominations, eventually claiming Band of the Year. 1993 was also the year that Manson gained a record contract and began to gain a national reputation. Manson had found a dark soulmate when the Spooks had supported the mighty Nine Inch Nails in 1990. When Trent Reznor decided to set up his own label, Manson were an obvious choice as debut artists. The label was to be called Nothing, and Reznor offered complete artistic freedom to his like-minded protégés. It was an invitation and an opportunity it was impossible to resist. With the Nine Inch Nails man as executive producer, Manson set about recording their first full-length album. The result was Portrait of an American Family. Widely regarded as Manson's first fully formed masterpiece, the album marked the emergence of Manson's very particular and personal writing style. For the first time, it was distinctly his voice. The album spat venom at cosy ideas of white-bread family values. It railed at the hypocrisy of small-minded moralists and religious bigots. Above all, it defended the right of individuals to question accepted dogmas. The first single to be taken from the album and released as a taste of what was to come was the acerbic Get Your Gun, a song that documented the murder of gynecologist Dr. David Gunn, killed by a pro-life, anti-abortion demonstrator. It was released by Nothing on the 9th of June 1994, and also made it onto the soundtrack of the motion picture SFW. The album itself was released in July, by which time bass player Gidget Guine had been replaced by the lovely Twiggy Ramirez, formerly Geordie White, a well-known face on the Florida music scene. Twiggy and Manson quickly gelled, and in August the family took their latest member with them as they began the next stage of their conquest of America. It was a 14-week stint, official support on the Nine Inch Nails Self-Destruct Tour, a chance to introduce the whole nation to their unlovely delights.
We reported weekly when on the last tour, who knew what was rumor and what was true, but the stuff that was being written about you and your band and your stage show was just the most ridiculous stuff I have ever seen. It was so obvious that these are people who have never been to a Marilyn Manson concert.
I gave them credit for being creative, though.
They were talking about you doing live sex on stage, and that you were. There was the one rumor on the Halloween show. Remember, you were going to commit suicide a couple of years ago, and people were really pumped for that.
Well, there's generally a rumor that I die about once every 2 weeks, so I have to just kind of keep press releases out. Sorry, I'm still alive.
Especially it's such a different world now that the internet is out there. I mean, those rumors can spread around the world in a day.
It's man has kind of created Big Brother for himself with the internet. It's.
Do you like it or do you hate it? Or do you care?
I think it's the CB radio of the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of idiots that are kind of hiding behind the secrecy, the anonymity.
Having said that, by the way, your fans, though, seem to really flock to the internet. I mean, you've got so much support on the web and so many groups that are devoted and dedicated to you.
It has the potential to be something great, but right now I think it's kind of dangerous because there's no law, there's no protection against what's real and what's not. And
which I would imagine you're a fan of, by the way.
Yeah, if people realize that it's just a tool for communication and it's not the news, then it's fine. But
bingo, yeah.
That's what the problem for me was last year. There were these Christian groups accepting these rumors as fact because they read it on the internet.
I heard you killed a guy on stage once. I heard that. I heard you, of course, everybody thought you killed a chicken, and that you talk about in the book was not true, for instance. Right. But man, they were just looking for anything. If you people knew, I don't know how much some of the listeners pay attention to what Marilyn has gone through just trying to mount a concert tour. Yeah. The lengths that these venues go to keep your band out of there is insane. Arbitrarily imposing curfews, for instance, and telling you, what lyrics and what songs and what T-shirts you can sell.
Or you can't talk between songs. And all that
I mean, I don't know of any artist who has had to endure what you have in the '90s. Certainly,
well, Mariah Carey, but other than her,
obviously. I mean, did you ever feel defeated by that? Did you ever feel like it was just too much trouble to go out and try to stage the show you wanted to do?
No, it really made it more exciting and more worthwhile because I felt like it had a cause, and I knew I wasn't doing those things. I knew that the show was provocative, but it wasn't what they were saying.
It was kind of challenging, kind of fun.
Yeah, there was the most dangerous part, I would have to say, is that there were a lot of bomb threats, and they'd bring in bomb dogs. Mm-hmm. But some people don't know, bomb dogs are the same dogs that sniff out drugs.
Right.
So we were always paranoid when they had these dogs sniffing around our dressing room.
I'm sure.
They would always bark at Twiggy's face for some reason.
Well, I bark at Twiggy's face when I see him.
From your perspective, what's probably the most bizarre rumor that is maybe even untrue that you've heard about yourself and your band that just kind of makes you laugh?
Well, there's so many, and my philosophy with rumors is at least they're talking about us, but it's kind of irrelevant sometimes whether they're true or not. An interesting one was that I had several ribs removed so I could orally gratify myself.
But that is true or not true?
The operation was a little too expensive, so I had to pass on that one.
Well, yeah, that would actually be kind of painful after all. I mean, obviously the results would be great, but it probably would be painful in the beginning.
I could imagine, but sometimes you have to suffer for art. Well, the 90s have been really boring because a lot of the pseudo-punk revival and the grunge revolution that kind of happened several years back really brainwashed people into thinking that bands with anything more than a T-shirt and jeans were insincere, and then they started, calling people like us shock rock and, regenerating a lot of these terms from the 80s and things. But I've always felt that, this is what rock and roll was meant to be. The bands that I grew up liking, Kiss and Bowie and Alice Cooper and things like that, were all very powerful icons, and I think that's an important part of music. And it's no surprise that we would continue on in that fashion. But it's something that, you know, hopefully we'll see more of in music in the 90s, the end of the millennium.
To say that Manson were not afraid to court publicity would be a vast understatement. Controversy and outrage were oxygen for them, and throughout the tour they took delight in terrifying the moral majority. Things came to a head when the tour reached Salt Lake City, home of the Mormon Church. The owners of the venue declared that they would allow Nine Inch Nails to perform, but under no circumstances would Marilyn Manson be allowed to play. The band did not play, but the man himself made it onto the stage. Trent Reznor explained to the audience the reason for the absence of the support band and invited Manson to comment. Manson accepted and proceeded to tear out pages from the Book of Mormon, at the same time reciting, "He loves me not." The immediate result was a frenzied trashing of the dressing rooms. It was incidents like this one which taunted Christian communities across America into mounting massive hate campaigns against the Manson family. The moral majority frothed at the mouth and did their utmost to prevent the band from playing live or selling CDs. It was one form of freedom of expression that the God-fearing were loath to allow. Of course, Manson would do nothing to placate these people. In fact, the reverse was true. During the same tour, Manson arranged a meeting with Anthony LaVey, head of the San Francisco-based Church of Satan. Manson was welcomed and ordained. He became the Reverend Marilyn Manson of the Church of Satan.
So you're a high priest in the Church of Satan, correct?
Name that.
That was
It's kind of unofficial?
yeah,
One of
that
those
was.
deals? Okay.
It was one of those things like when you get a Boy Scout badge, like for walking an old lady across the street. For being like the most evil guy in America, they gave me the...
Hey, congratulations.
Hey, way to
It was
go.
one of those
We're happy for you.
Good work.
Parents must be proud.
Now, do you call home on something like that and go, Dad, I've got great news? And the Church of Satan is it a real place that people can go? I mean, do they have congregations? And
No, it's more of
Singles
just
parties?
a philosophy that Anton LaVey died
Recently,
last
yeah.
October.
That's
so,
right.
so I think his to me he's just like Nietzsche, Voltaire, Freud, all these people
he's just
who've
a
had
thinker.
thinker.
Right. But the church, this is the last point I'll make on this, the Church of Satan, though, is not devil worshipping, or is? Because the impression I got from your book is that it's not.
No,
They don't even
it's
believe
not.
in Satan.
You don't-
It's not at all. I mean, it's
How can the Church of Satan not believe in Satan, for God's sake?
That seems ill-named.
It's they kind of adopted the title Satanism in kind of the definitive rebellion, like a Satan
Well, it works.
as being the definition of rebellion.
Do you think that they would be upset about the fact that you're wearing a gold scarf today?
I don't think so. I think
right.
gold scarves are a big part of Satanism.
Okay,
You
It
don't.
kind of diffuses.
It does.
It
diffuse.
does, yeah.
You come in a gold scarf and go, "Hey, how much trouble can he cause? He's got a gold
And
scarf."
wouldn't the devil be wearing a gold scarf?
And he's
If you were-
stylish.
Point. That's a good point.
You don't believe in God?
I don't really believe in anything specific except myself. That's what I've learned over the years. Well, it's one philosophy among many that I enjoy and incorporate into my different ideas. As a kid growing up, I was into a lot of people like Aleister Crowley and Friedrich Nietzsche and Darwin and even Freud to a certain extent. And Anton LaVey was kind of a modern version of all of those people. And Satanism is something that gets really sensationalized in America, but it's really a philosophy about self-preservation and being an individual, and being your own God. It doesn't really have a whole lot to do with worshiping the devil. In fact, at this point, if I'm not mistaken, Marilyn Manson is bigger than Satan.
Can we quote you on that?
More people believe in me than they do in him.
So we're going to see people burning albums and CDs in a couple of weeks.
I hope so, as long as they buy them first.
Wes, thanks for calling.
Brush them up and snort them for all I care.
Just buy them first. Wes, you're on the air. Thanks.
Hey, if you weren't musicians, what would you be?
So are you calling me a musician?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I suppose TV evangelism, would be my only alternative. It's kind of similar what I do. I have things on my mind that I want to say, and I go around the country saying them to a lot of people. It's not real different than what a missionary would do, except that I have to pay taxes at the end of the year.
Twiggy, how about you?
Prostitute.
Okay. There you
Whiskey, speed, I don't know.
With the tour completed and a good many people left open-mouthed, the band returned home to Florida. It was a memorable homecoming, not least because of the 16 hours in police custody that followed a nudity-filled gig in Jacksonville. As soon as possible, the family embarked on a fresh tour, this time as headliners. In January 1995, while playing in South Carolina, the band tossed a live chicken into a heaving mosh pit during their set. Animal rights groups were incensed, despite the fact that the chicken survived. Drummer Sarah Lee left 2 months later, deciding not to finish the tour after he and his drum kit had been ignited on stage by the good Reverend. Lee's replacement was Gingerfish. The tour was completed, and in May 1995, the family headed into the studio once more. The track Lunchbox had been the second single released from Portrait. The third was to be Dope Hat, and the studio time was originally to remix the track for release. The eventual result was almost an album's worth of material, and became the Smells Like Children EP, a mini-album released by Nothing in October of 1995.
Well, that was actually just an EP of remixes.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of other interesting little items that we wanted to put on there. Some of those things, like the telephone conversation, which was between my mother and my grandmother. So that was kind of interesting.
Uh-huh.
But that was.
So it ended up being an album.
That was,
rather
yeah.
than,
It was really just designed to be a few songs, but we ended up putting a lot of different things on there. So yeah, it didn't have a lot of momentum, but it wasn't really designed to, because it wasn't really meant to be an album like that. Smells Like Children was a reference to two things: a book called Perfume by Patrick Susskind, which is about a boy who's born with a strong sense of smell, and he finds that the smell of children is the purest, the smell of innocence is the purest thing. So he tries to distill that smell. In doing so, he becomes a mass murderer. It's a really interesting book. And also Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, there's the character called the Child Catcher. A lot of people told me that I looked like him, and as a kid I was very afraid of him, because he would go around and he would smell out the kids, and he would kidnap them. So the title was a reference to innocence, the smell of innocence, and it was supposed to be like a children's record that wasn't for.
The title of the EP came from the character of the child catcher in one of the Reverend's favourite children's books, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. The video that accompanied the release was a darkly surreal affair that took images from children's books and twisted them grotesquely. MTV wasn't quite ready for lollipop sticks and dripping razor blades, but the video was given rotation late at night, and more media attention followed.
What's your favorite fetish item?
Favorite fetish item? I'm not much into the conventional, trendy sex things that people get off on these days. I'm actually more conservative and nostalgic. I find that brown thigh-high pantyhose are the most sexually appealing thing to me. So I actually wear them myself on stage because it's hard to find girls that'll wear them.
What brand? Can you give us an endorsement?
Twiggy and I actually have always, since we were kids, liked the La Eggs, because there was something exciting about cracking open that egg and the brown pantyhose rolling out and the crotch panel and the whole thing. It was very sexually exciting.
I want to know how you feel about being such a major sex symbol nowadays.
Well, I didn't know
thank
that
you.
I was, but I've always looked at sex in a very ugly way, because of things like I mentioned before with my grandfather. So, the song Beautiful People is kind of a comment on the fascism of beauty in America. And it's challenging that, to say that, I have a different idea of, what could be beautiful. But I've always tried my best to be unappealing and to make myself unattractive. So I guess it's a bit of a sad statement on America's taste if they find me to be a sex symbol.
The EP included cover versions of Patti Smith's Rock and Roll Nigger and the screaming Jay Hawkins classic I Put a Spell on You. But it was the family's version of the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams Are Made of These that did the most to bring them to the attention of the general public. Despite the fact that it was not until the following year that it was released as a single and video, it soon became associated with the band and was a live favourite on the Smells Like Children tour. The tour lasted 5 months. Highlights included Manson shoving Berkowitz off the stage on New Year's Eve and a snowbound night in Pennsylvania when the family found themselves in the same hotel and the same bar as the touring company of Sesame Street Live. When Sweet Dreams was finally released in the spring of 1996, it was Marilyn Manson's first taste of mainstream exposure. A whole new audience had their first taste of the band and success of the single. The hectic touring and the gold status achieved now by Portrait of an American Family meant that his family were becoming almost a household name. The biggest and best was still to come. Trent Reznor established a recording studio for nothing deep in New Orleans, a gothic voodoo-drenched city that was the perfect setting for the family to create their version of a soundscape to Armageddon. The album that would emerge was Antichrist Superstar, and the opening track was The Hierophant. The dictionary definition of Hierophant is an initiating priest, an expounder of sacred mysteries, from the Greek hero meaning sacred, and the Latin phant meaning to show. The world that Manson wanted to bring his followers into was one of the strange rites and visions. The family themselves experimented with drugs and sleep deprivation during the recording, and rumours abounded of Kabbalistic magic being practiced. The story told to the outside world was that the album had been recorded in the future and was being sent back in time to be released. That every time it was played, it would bring mankind one step closer to the apocalypse. The character of the Hierophant was also the Antichrist Superstar, a more diabolical version of Bowie's Ziggy Stardust, and the album was divided into 3 cycles describing the Antichrist's rites of passage, transformation, and final rebirth. Manson himself described it as his diary, a diary of things that had happened and things that were yet to happen.
That's one element that is really dealt with on Antichrist Superstar. It's about, not only the power that we've gotten to at this point, but what will be achieved in the years to come. And I feel that, yes, we have gained some popularity, but I don't feel like we have succeeded or that we're done with what we achieved to accomplish.
What do you think the pinnacle is for the band? I mean, what is that achievement at least in the near future for you guys?
Well, it's hard to say because, there's no one thing that can measure, the satisfaction of knowing you've done all that you can do and, create the best music that you can create. But, we're real proud of this record and, we just look to continue to, become the biggest rock band in America, I suppose. We spent about 6 months in the studio trying to transcribe tapes that we had made on tour, and over the past 5 years, a lot of dreams that I had that I wrote down. And we spent a lot of time, almost torturing ourselves at some points, trying to put it all together, because the album is a bit of a ritual in some sense to bring about the apocalypse, and whether that's of the subconscious or of the real world, that's up for everyone to decide on their own. But we spent 6 hard months of sleep deprivation, drug experimentation, and all sort of pain rituals and things, trying to tap into the subconscious and find this record, and when we were done, it was a great weight off of our backs.
Twiggy, how was it for you?
Whiskey, and speed, and I tried to hire someone to sew my eyes open so I wouldn't sleep. I got about 10 days, and then I passed out for about a week.
Could you do Could you try Clockwork Orange thing with your eyes open? Remember that?
He tried that once with toothpicks, but then he ended up having to go to the emergency room one night, and which just sucks because I hate talking to the cops, and when they have some sort of bizarre, which they thought it was some sort of occult crime had occurred, I had to speak with the New Orleans Police Department. It was very uncomfortable.
Hi, can we expect to see anything different on stage for this tour?
Where are you at?
I'm in Sacramento.
Yeah, we're going to be coming there after the first of the year. The show is a lot like the record. the transformation that takes place on the album and the sort of birth of Antichrist Superstar, so to speak, is translated in a live fashion. And it's a lot bigger and worse than it's ever been in the past. So I think as far as it being different, it's still very much Marilyn Manson, but there's more of it. So.
How expensive and intense was this actual show as far as putting it together and actually getting it on tour? I mean, does it take a little extra time to get things set up? Because there's some interesting things that happen during the show. I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but how hard is it to actually put this particular show together?
I'm not real sure. You know, I never really get involved in that, because if I have an idea, I'll just have somebody else carry it out, because I don't like to, let money or something like that get in the way of bringing across what we want to do. So,
well, drugs cost about $150, so about $150 a night.
Yeah,
there's a budget line.
It costs us $150 a night to go on stage.
Okay, there you go.
That's a different expense.
Antichrist Superstar was eventually released in the US on October the 10th, 1996, and 4 days later in the UK. The intense atmosphere in which it had been recorded took its toll and led to the departure in the early stages of founder member Daisy Berkowitz. Berkowitz had increasingly taken a back seat, and on the finished album most of the guitar parts had been performed by Twiggy Ramirez. After placing an ad in Village Voice and sifting through 150 replies, the family settled on a Chicagoan dubbed Zim Zum. The first band member not to take on the trademark film star serial killer alter ego, but then his name was already taken from a Hebrew term for an angel of death. A rumour had begun circulating via the internet that following the album's release, Marilyn Manson would commit a cult-like mass suicide on All Hallows Eve. Instead, the band embarked on their biggest tour to date. The Dead to the World Tour took them all across the US, Europe and the UK. Meanwhile, the album debuted at number 3 in the Billboard charts and acquired general critical acclaim. Critics remarked that it was the most serious effort the band had so far produced, less concerned with showmanship and lyrically deeper and more intense.
20 questions with Marilyn Manson. We like to do this with our guests. I'll just throw out the questions. You say the first thing that comes to your mind, which in your case might be a mistake. 20 questions with Marilyn Manson. Are you a citizen of the United States of America?
Yes.
What do you think of Eddie Vedder?
I saw him recently, and he was brown and had a beard. He looked like a Mexican migrant worker.
Were you in the school band?
Yeah, I played the triangle.
What is your favorite cartoon?
I guess I'm going to go with the popular South Park.
Do you think Jesus really had a beard?
I think Jesus was the first sex symbol, and he may or may not be similar to Eddie Vedder.
Name 3 characters from The Cosby Show.
Willis, Kimberly, and Arnold.
That's right, oddly enough.
Amazing.
Have you ever baked anything?
Does crystal meth count?
Sure. What do you think of Courtney Love?
She's gonna find a way to edit my comment somehow. She'll go back in time.
No matter what it is you say?
Yeah, no matter what I say. So I think she's just great.
How old do you think you'll get?
I never think about things like that.
When was the last time you got punched?
I guess yesterday, because we were in the studio and I threw some whiskey in my Twiggy's face and he punched me.
He's the most tolerant man in America, that Twiggy. The fact that he shows up for work every day is a miracle.
Which is your favorite Winter Olympic event?
I don't like sports at all.
Which is your favorite Spice Girl?
I like the fat one.
Ginger, yeah. Chubby Spice, sorry.
Chubby Spice. What did you dress as on Halloween?
A cowboy.
Do you reckon you'll ever have kids?
In what way?
Smells like children.
Do you reckon you'll ever use the word reckon?
No.
Would you rather hang out with a guy named Rob or a guy named Chuck?
That's some weird inside radio joke.
No, we just
no, it's not. It's not. No.
If it's Rob Lowe, I would ask him to play me that videotape that he did a couple years back.
Have you ever been called cute?
Yeah, cute's not a good word.
Have you ever gone fishing?
I did go fishing as a kid.
Really?
A couple times.
And what do you think of Tony Orlando and or Don?
Personally, I'm more Captain and Tennille than
I'm with you. I'm with you there.
That's the way we figured.
That's right.
We took bets earlier. We figured.
The media flocked to Manson. The single, The Beautiful People, became a radio staple. Manson t-shirts were paraded by the truckload, and mainstream magazines formed queues to feature the Reverend and his family on their covers. As the cult of Manson spread, so did the fundamentalist group. As the cult of Manson spread, so did fundamentalist opposition. As the band began to achieve worldwide celebrity with sell-out shows in country after country, so their opponents back home became more and more determined. Christian organisations, right-wing extremists and pressure groups such as the American Family Association repeatedly launched assaults on the band, attacking them in the press, calling for boycotts of gigs, even encouraging the many bomb and death threats that the family, and especially Manson himself, received on a regular basis. The family gained more new disciples touring Japan and Australia, and in May 1997 began a 20-date tour as part of Ozzy Osbourne's Ozfest. Manson was singled out by the moral majority for continual harassment. It meant they were forced to take court action in order not to be removed from the show's bill at several venues. The American Family Association began producing flyers accusing the band of various outrages, including human sacrifice, and distributed them outside concerts. Manson used the courts to have the circulation of the flyers deemed illegal, a significant victory against the kind of people Manson scorned as fake Disney World America. Manson took their dark vision to the world and refused to compromise or dilute it. They achieved their success without ever having to apologise. When the Manson vision did change, it was their choice. Manson himself has emphasised that the writing of his autobiography, The Long Hard Road Out of Hell, forced him to review his own life and change perspective. The book was released in 1997, and on an MTV Meet the Fans half hour, the Reverend admitted that his confessions had helped shape a change in his attitudes. Up until this point, his music had been mostly inspired by defiance and rage. His main artistic tool had been hate. He explained that where he used to compare himself with Lucifer, now he's beginning to explore his similarities with Jesus. The industrial in-your-face cacophony was to give way to something more thoughtful.
We were really surprised to hear you had a book coming out because you're a young guy. You got a couple of records under your belt, but man, you've got a lot to say. You wrote.
You've had a hell of a life.
You have. You've crammed a lot in the last 4 or 5 years. That's for sure. This guy, your voice on it. I mean, you didn't farm this out to somebody. You have a co-writer, but I mean, it's all you pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I originally wanted to be a writer.
Weren't you in journalism school or something?
Yeah, I started out writing short stories and things like that, but then I got sidetracked and did this little band thing.
Yeah.
And then, I met the writer Neil Strauss. He interviewed me for Rolling Stone, and I thought he was gay, so I invited him into the hot tub with me. And I ended up getting a cover story, but he's not gay, I don't think.
But you still got the story. That's cool.
And then I thought I'd get him to kind of organize my ideas, because, you know, it's easy to write stories, but it's hard to kind of put your whole life into perspective. And it makes you think. Like, when I finished the book, it kind of changed my opinion on myself, and I think it will drastically affect stuff that I do in the future, like our new album that we're working on.
What do you think of yourself these days? What is the self-assessment right now? Are you happy with where you are and what you're doing?
Can you say asshole on the radio?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think in times I've been that.
The book is called The Long Hard Road Out of Hell, and a lot of people who don't follow you very closely, this explains how you got to be who you are.
Yeah.
You want to give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of growing up as a kid with it's pretty religious trappings around you. Kind of forced you away from it, didn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess mostly in Christian school, they used to have these seminars every Friday where these ex-hookers and people who used to be in cults and things would come in, and they would talk about how rock music drove them to smoking pot and listening to Black Sabbath, and they'd play albums backwards. And that's where I heard
There was a whole
about,
backwards masking thing. They were going crazy at the time with the backward masking.
that's where I heard about all the cool bands that I would listen to. You know, they would play Queen backwards, and it was like some sort of anthem to make you become a homosexual.
Right. We all know that works, right?
I mean,
So you went, hey, Queen, cool, I'll listen to it.
I'll listen to Queen, right?
this morning I listened to We Will Rock You, and I put on a gold scarf, so, you know, make
I think that proves the point, right?
There you go.
I'm trying to decipher what's going on here, because you've got some phenomenally interesting concepts about sex. It's pretty much anything goes with you, right, Marilyn?
Not necessarily. I'm pretty conservative. I like sometimes...
You are not pretty conservative. See what I'm talking about?
I'm pretty conservative.
I don't have sex with animals.
Good.
Okay, good.
Although that
Thank
may
God.
surprise some people, that's good. All right.
I've had
have
sex when there's animals in the room.
right, but they're not involved.
Yeah, but so has beans.
They're watching.
Right.
I think that's wrong though, because it traumatizes it. You get a little
I
dog
agree.
and he's watching, his eyes are getting all big.
I agree. If I had sex ever, I would have the dog leave the room. Now, but a lot of sex though. I mean, you got to, the book is chapter after chapter of this woman, this woman, this man, this man. I mean, there's a lot of that going on.
No.
Yes.
You're glamorizing.
No, I'm not. That's accurate. You're having tons of
exploiting me.
sex. How many
It's
people?
impossible to exploit you, isn't it?
How many people you had sex with in the last 5 years? Do you reckon?
Just one.
500? Would you say 500 is an accurate number?
Absolutely not.
300?
Absolutely not.
Come on, give me a
I'll tell you
rough
what,
idea.
Last 5 days.
No, I have a girlfriend now, and I don't have sex with her.
She's a good-looking woman, by the way.
Wait a minute. Why don't you have sex with her?
I'm not allowed
Because
the dogs are in the room.
Tests haven't come back yet. That's why. If it's a woman I'm talking about, I don't recall her name, but she's very actress, right?
Yeah.
Good-looking woman, yeah. But in the last 5 years, though, it's been hundreds of people that you've had sex with.
No, that's not true. If you read the book,
Marilyn, it is true. Come on,
If you read the book, you're confused.
dude.
that's not true.
Dude,
No.
don't try. Even if I'm wrong, man, go with it.
No.
All right, let me read from your book on the chapter on homosexuality and the chapter on rules.
Oh, this confused us. We were talking about this earlier in the week. Yeah.
I think our philosophies are radically different on this one. My philosophy about sexuality is I don't have a problem with anything anyone does in any way. All I ask is that you know the rules. I have given oral sex to several men, which a lot of straight guys won't admit to having done or wanting to do. But just like kissing a girl can't get her pregnant, giving oral sex to a guy doesn't make you gay unless you break rule number 3, which is if you get excited while you're doing it, then you're gay.
Okay, here's
That's absolutely right.
No, if you're slarving the dode, Marilyn, you are gay.
Let me give you an example.
You really are.
You're just gay.
Now, see, if you're
I'll go one
performing-
further. Let me
No,
go
listen.
one further. If you're not repulsed by it, even if you don't do it, you're gay.
No, you guys are too sensitive. If you perform oral sex and there's no sort of arousal, say for example, this would be the case.
Okay.
I'm bored backstage. Twiggy and I were having a few shots of whiskey.
Gay.
And
No, they're not gay yet. They're not gay yet. Wait till we get to the
and
part.
we have a chat. I say, I dare you
Right.
to perform oral sex on me. So he takes a condom and puts it on and puts it in his mouth.
Yeah.
And we all
Gay.
laugh and
Gay.
done.
G-A-Y.
No,
Capital
that
G,
doesn't make
capital
you
A,
gay.
capital Y.
What if,
know, that-
if sex with a man does not make you gay,
That's
what
not
does?
sex.
Yes,
That's a good point. That's part of the definition.
Let me ask you this.
How
okay.
is that not sex?
Say your intern over here
Casey?
just came over.
Casey, would you
And-
step up? Would you mind being part of the exhibit here?
and just fondled your genitals for a few minutes, but you weren't aroused.
Right.
Is that sex?
Dead.
No.
Yeah, maybe you're dead. Yeah. There are some other things in this book on how you know you're gay. If Michael Stipe is in the room with you and you're having sex with a woman, you're bisexual.
That's absolutely true.
I think that one might be true. Yeah, I think that is true.
Because that's me in the corner.
All from the song. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
If you're at a gay bar, you're not gay. But if you're at a straight bar and you talk to another guy longer than you talk to a girl, you're gay.
You're gay.
Absolutely.
I'm with that. Okay.
You're talking about talking to a guy instead of a girl makes you gay, but not performing oral sex.
Gay is not about sex. It's a state of mind.
So the sex can happen as long as the state of mind isn't gay.
You can be gay and you can be a virgin. See?
Well, yeah, that's
Sex
true.
doesn't really have anything to do with being
That
gay.
is true. Actually, I hadn't thought about that.
If you've ever worn a beret.
I think that's just common sense.
That's pretty good myself. This is a funny ass book. If you've had,
Hey, isn't Mother's Day coming up just around the corner? Maybe Marilyn Manson's book would be an outstanding gift for Mom.
Oh, my mom would have
My mom read it.
heart attack.
yeah, your mom
My mom
read
read
it. Yeah, but your mom also had sex with Gene Simmons.
Hey, what did your mom think of the book? Did she like it?
Well, she doesn't like that I mentioned the fact that she lets her pet rats crawl around in her brassiere.
Thought about that when I saw you on Letterman last week, and you were talking about that, and I thought, Mom's not into that.
You're not a huge Smiths fan, I take it.
You know what I am? I
Oh, you
have
are?
a lot of Smiths albums.
If you have any kind of sex with a male or female and you're listening to the Smiths, you're gay.
You're gay. I agree with that. That makes sense to me.
That's pretty good. If you're friends with anyone named Dick, gay. If you have sex with a girl who likes the Smith, you're gay.
One of my favorite ones, if I can point out, since
Sure.
we're on the subject.
Certainly.
If you have sex with a pregnant woman and she's pregnant with a boy,
Oh, my
you're
God.
gay.
Because
And
technically, yes.
and if some of your special
Yes.
Yes, we understand.
ingredients
Yes.
touch the child
Yes.
while it's in the womb,
Oh, geez.
he's going to grow up to be gay.
I'm curious about you. You seem like a big contradiction because A, you seem like a bit of a gay basher, and B, you seem like you're a bit gay.
Oh, I'm not a gay basher. I'm just making the rules clear.
I see.
You know,
All right.
I think it's okay to be gay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to encourage you guys. Just come out.
The book was never meant to define him. He has always been at pains to defy any attempts to do this. but it did seem to reveal that he had become a more sober individual, someone who had stepped to the very brink of psychosis, but had survived and become stronger. There was one other factor involved in the change about to come. By 1998, Marilyn Manson had survived stardom. Throughout his life and his music, his intention had never been simply to shock for the sake of shock alone. He had said himself that would have been too predictable. But the persona he had created by now became almost totally accepted into pop culture. It was being copied by the mainstream, and that was another reason to move on. The first concrete evidence of these changes was to come with 1998 Mechanical Animals. When Manson attended a marketing meeting at Nothing's parent company, MCA, he presented the corporates with a complete and final package: the completed album, the first single, and the artwork. He then gave them a simple instruction: now go sell it.
The record's the last album was about stripping away all emotions. This one is kind of about what it's like when they come back, and it's like being a person that doesn't belong in a world.
For this album, Manson took on the persona of a sci-fi Christ figure called Amiga. The family became the Mechanical Animals. The ideas in the album were just as dark as before, but this was a more subtle message. The landscape was bleak and futuristic, an emotionally distant world where humans have been rendered robot-like by their addiction to technology. A world that Amiga reviles, a world that will destroy him. Manson still had the ability to shock, and for many people, the greatest shock was that this was an album full of magnetic melodiousness, an album with a minimum of gimmicks and trickery, an album of songs. Trent Reznor stepped down, and new producer Michael Beinhorn helped shape an almost pretty-sounding mix of pounding anthems, fat chords, occasionally funky guitar, and gospel-esque backing vocals. Manson himself turns almost from ranter to crooner, singing floating tales of drug use, cyberspace, and out of space. Mechanical Animals topped the US charts in its first week of release and went top 10 in the UK. It may have been their most accessible album yet, and rock's dark god may have donned glitter boots, but this was no sellout. The serial killer riffs can still come any time. Under a thin smear of makeup, Manson is still as dangerous and dirty as he ever was. This is just a new skin he wanted to display. Like any true artist, Marilyn Manson will continue to grow and change, most likely for the better.
Did you have an idea of what was what the goal was? Was it to be hugely successful, or was it to make enough to get by, or what?
I still haven't really reached the goal that I kind of set out for.
What is it? You have no problem being immensely popular, though. I mean, that's something that appeals to you, right?
I think it's important to be a part of popular culture if you have an important opinion, because there's so many things out there that are so mediocre.
Right on.
That if you've got a strong mind, it's important that you blend with the mainstream so you can affect it, rather than just watch it go by.